of jobs within the army people can get involved in, sign up for. So there are over 76 different job roles within the army. Individuals can join either as an officer or as a regular soldier, and there are even opportunities for people to join from the age of 16 to go to the Army Foundation College up at Havilland to become a junior soldier as well. And throughout their training, throughout their military career, they have opportunities and qualifications that they can gain, and great benefits as well, and everyone will generally find it very beneficial.
And what is the future and what do you want to do?
So, I joined this while I was 23 years
Now, I think you're all fully briefed about what's coming up shortly. Yes, it's day 3 of this 30th anniversary Airbourne. Yes, indeed. For the next 3 hours, we've got an exciting show for you. They'll be coming in fast and furious, upside down, inside out, and in many, many different formations as well. Some special extra guests coming your way today, and that's just beefing up from what we've seen over the last 2 days. If you haven't been with us, and top of the list, of course, the weather. Forecast fantastic today and tomorrow, so we are expecting no interruptions whatsoever. You'll see a few more boats out there, which is a good opportunity to talk about how we safely run things like this. They're on the back edge of what we call the maritime exclusion zone, and you'll see the front edge is marked by those red buoys. That is the display line, and also there's a marker line for the black buoys as well. The most important thing for you to note is the little yellow buoys, beyond which you will be in trouble. So please stay inside. Although there are lots of things available, I'm told by the lifeguards there's some great kayaks and also boards and everything else to hire up and down the beaches. You're welcome to use them, but please stay within reasonable sight of the beach inside those swimming buoys for the rest of the afternoon. At the same time, if you're thinking of putting anything in the sky, forget it right now. Put it back in the box, whatever it is, drones, balloons, kites, no thank you. We do want to see any of them. We've already had an incursion, and that will almost certainly lead to a prosecution. So you have been warned. It is illegal to do so, and therefore you will be in trouble. So please, please, please don't, if you see anybody else, please just tell them politely, put it away, because it will cause us some angst. So enough of that. Now time to enjoy yourselves and get set up for a fabulous afternoon's flying entertainment. Get the kids sorted in particular. Lots of UV, lots of sunshine. So you know what that means. Hats, sunscreen, plenty of fluids for the kids, and also wristbands are useful too as it gets busy during the course of the afternoon. Of course, some of you may get separated. The information stand is the place to go for reunification. That's up on the western lawns, and also really helpful staff there. But anything that's troubling you during the course of the day, just of course speak to any of the friendly stewards around the place, and of course the police that we've got with us as well today. Most importantly then, on top of all that, to make sure you know what is happening when and where, because there's more than just aviation in this Airbourne. There's activities all around the town, right through until this evening. Pick up a programme, just £10, packed full of some great information, superb photography, and of course those detailed timings as well about the aircraft, and some great information as well. So we've just got about 10 minutes or so to run before we bring in the first a thrilling set of aviators not seen here before. That'll be the Starlings at 2 o'clock. drinks and ice creams, whatever you have there, for a super afternoon ahead. And we're going to have a brilliant bit of fun. I think we've been having a great couple of days already, joining the Red Hours on Thursday for their 60th and our 30th. And I think it's also another 40th coming up today, but I'll just double check on that. But right alongside me now, my wingman for this afternoon. Yes, of course, that's non-gender specific, really. It is a term that when you're in formation, you always have a wingman, whether it's a boy or girl or whatever. It can be any gender, but it's referred to as the wingman. And is Fiona Wallace. So Fiona, lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too, George. Isn't it a gorgeous day out there?
Yeah, just fantastic. Well, you bring a ray of sunshine, even if it was dull.
Thank you very much.
So Fiona's going to keep track on what's going on around the town during the course of the afternoon and the evening and all the various events, and I think has a support fundraising tip.
Yes, I do. So if you haven't already got a programme, go and find one. They're £10. There's all the information you need in there for the weekend, including competitions, prizes to win, all sorts of things, fun games for the kids, but also for supporting the air show, there's a couple of really easy ways. I mean, firstly, if you do see one of our people out there with a collection bucket and you've got some cash, please do pop that into the bucket. But for those of you who don't have any cash on you, on the inside of the front cover of the programme, there is a QR code that you can scan, and that will take you to the saveairbourne.com website where you can make a donation. But also, if you are chatting to a member of staff out and about around the site and they're wearing a lanyard around their neck, on the other side there is also a QR code that you can scan to donate, and that pops in an automatic £2.50, which is less than a price of a frilly coffee, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so it's a bargain, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of at least half the cost of a pint of beer as well. So let's all try and keep this show on the road, shall we? The Eastbourne Borough Council team done a fantastic job, led by Pete Martin, and again supported by a whole host of volunteers. But don't let's forget the sponsors, without whom we wouldn't have a show.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Birchwood Ford, who are the silver sponsor, they've supplied the all-electric pilot transportation.
Oh,
I know, that's very modern, isn't it?
That is, and actually they've had to go all over the place to pick up the aircrew.
Yeah.
Some of them landed in Lydd the other day instead of Shoreham. We got people at Shoreham, we got people at Biggin Hill, and it's it's a really dispersed aircraft show. This.
Yeah. So that's fabulous that it's all electric as well. So thank you to Birchwood Ford for that. The View, the Cumberland and Lansdowne hotels have apparently been accommodating the display teams, so they've all had a rather comfortable stay.
They have, and thank you so much. It's really, really important because, you know, there's no such thing as a free air show. It actually costs a small fortune to do all this, and somebody's got to find the money somewhere. Oh. And that sort of support is gold dust.
It is, isn't it? Because they've all had a good night's sleep, which, you know.
Well, it's absolutely
very
key.
important. Yeah, absolutely. Caffins have been supporting Radio Airborne again this year, which is fantastic. Good. And Euro Self-Drive have also provided transportation.
Well, I'm looking at your list, and there's a whole host of different people there. So let's just take a break there. We have got, of course, set up all the safety checks now. That's not just on the sea that you can see in front of you, which seems to be working pretty well. Just a reminder, please stay inside, close to the beach, whether you're in a kayak or anything else. And again, just reinforcing absolutely nothing in the air. Drones, balloons, kites, keep them in the boot of the car, please. Thank you very much indeed. Display management upstairs from me here, which is great news. So just a couple of minutes to go now. These guys coming from across the border in Kent, flying in from headquarters today. Two outstanding pilots and a really superb display to start with. Cast your eyes over to the left-hand side and see a pair of really superb little aerobatic aircraft, extra NGs, and they're flown by two of the top aerobatic pilots in the United Kingdom. Please welcome the Starlings. And this is a unique form of smoke. It's all controlled by a little machine inside. It's actually very useful for what the team can undertake, which is sky typing or sky writing, giving them the opportunity, and not today, but if they wish, to write a message in the sky for you. First approach, absolutely spot on the money as well, as you would expect from these two massively experienced guys, Tom Cassels and Michael Pickin. Familiar names to many of us in the air display business, and champions in their own right, been flying for many years indeed. Certainly Tom, over 4 decades of experience. Michael, he was the youngest British aerobatic champion ever to achieve that, but Tom, both of them, several competitive wins and accolades under their belt through the course of the last 20 years or so, and really outstanding. Here you see two guys who think in each other's heads. There's something really, I think, satisfying about watching a tight formation pairs display. And these two are consummate masters at exactly what you're looking at. So Tom leading this at the moment. They'll do a series of pairs formation maneuvers before then splitting into their individual madcap aerobatic displays. And you can just see how tight Michael is, tucked right under the tail of Tom's aircraft. And his job is to replicate every little maneuver, every control input that Tom is calling. And you may hear that on my scanner, which is alongside me now and again. Flying the extra 300 NG, the latest, one of the most modern, purpose-designed and built unlimited aerobatic aircraft in the world. Of course, to achieve that, you have to go through the training sequences of getting various levels from basic to intermediate, and then, of course, to fully unlimited, where you're allowed to have a package of maneuvers in your head. This one is choreographed, of course, but when they go solo, they can use their abilities and skills as suits the conditions on the day, and this, I would say, is pretty much near perfect. Coming out of the Extra Aircraft Company in Germany, the original 300 was designed by Walter Extra back in 1987, himself a former German aerobatic champion. That design has been tweaked and refined over the last 4 decades, with sales across the globe, making it one of the most popular aircraft on the scene. It's a huge leap forward for design and history, with an all-carbon fiber frame, state-of-the-art avionics, and also, luckily for the pilots, a new level of comfort as well. And there you hear the commands, and it's on that very last iteration, the last end of the syllable mentioned, that is when the control input goes in, and you can just see how wonderfully replicated that is by Michael. As they come up to the top of this maneuver, they'll be looking back over their shoulders to ensure wings are level with the horizon, and then they clock the instruments to ensure that they bottom out exactly at the right speed and altitude required for the next maneuver. All takes years of training and precision rehearsals. Putting up now for what we call a stall turn. You'll see a few more of these during the course of the afternoon. They go up and they let the speed bleed off until there's almost nothing on the clock there, and then put a boot full of rudder in, very, very nicely synchronized there. Coming in now, photographic opportunity for their first break of the afternoon. Let's drop into the cockpit again. Oh, wasn't that just absolutely stunningly brilliant timing as well, first class. So you can see the improved aerodynamics already on this aircraft, a high degree of maneuverability and precise handling, making this extra NG a really, really fast aerobatic aircraft. Tom actually got his built specifically by the manufacturer to his own precise specification, including a heater to keep him warm on the transit flights to and fro to the many displays that he does. Now keep your eyes peeled as they just tighten up that formation once again. And you hear that accent there, if that's Tom up the front, just very calmly putting the smoke on now for the first heart of the day. And absolutely brilliantly done. Isn't the sky just perfect for that? And this one's for Matt and Hannah. Matt's one of the lifeguards up on the beach there, been working very hard keeping everybody safe all through the various seasons, and they're celebrating their anniversary this afternoon. Good to see them here as well, and great to see the Starlings performing so brilliantly. So Tom started way back in the 70s as a passenger flying with the Wessex, Puma and Western Scout while he was in the Army, and took off in a Dragon Rapide many times, but it gave him the inspiration. Went on to do a sports parachute course at Netheravon, but didn't start flying himself to the early 80s, and then like so many pilots, you start on the slower, lower, easier aircraft, doing parachute dropping to get some hours in before he was introduced to aerobatics by Pete Clark in 1992. Won his first contest as a beginner. Oh, look at that. Terrific now going independent into their unlimited routine. And we're about to see a masterclass once again in their individual skill set as well. Jinxing there, coming out virtually just adding to what would be a half Cuban, where you just put in a little twist. In this case, 2 twists going in, going airborne now, and just letting the speed bleed off before then twisting the aircraft, not into a stall turn, but actually letting it tumble, hammerhead style. And again, whilst this may look out of control, I can assure you it certainly isn't. It's very safe in the hands of these 2 outstanding pilots. Michael Pickin was the youngest and perhaps also the most versatile member of the team, affectionately known as Tintin. His day job being on flying Boeing aircraft for commercial airlines, introduced by his dad, who was also no stranger to competitive and display flying as well. But on his 16th birthday, Mike flew solo in 5 different aircraft and a glider, but he'd already won his first competition as an aerobatic pilot, aged just 14 in a Cab 10. And what a joy it is to see the performance and freestyle agility of the Extra NG. Keep your eyes peeled now, top and center. And they're using up every opportunity, transferring all that downward speed into extra energy for more aerobatic maneuvers on the upslope. Little smoke machine pumping out there, and of course the smoke all environmentally friendly as well. It's often a type of material substance we call ondina, and it's not just there for your own entertainment, but it also acts as an excellent safety device as well, particularly in formation flying when you're spread across the sky and it's very difficult to pick up your opposition wingman, and so it does both aspects extremely well. The aircraft purposely built for this form of unlimited aerobatics, with roll rates in excess of 420 degrees per second and G-forces of plus or minus 10 G. Now, we talked about G a little bit yesterday. You're all experiencing 1 G at the moment. That's just your body weight going down through your feet into the ground. Imagine somebody pressing on your head with a weight 10 times your own weight. Then you can imagine the sort of force that you would have to stand to remain upright. Equally so, if we turned you upside down and pressed down towards your head 2 or 3 times, then you would have some idea what the pressure is with all the blood rushing to your head. And Tom just calling both aircraft back together now. Starting a very neat, slow roll. Can be a tricky maneuver, actually. You've got to have all 3 dimensions going straight into a slide, and isn't that delightful? So they're just re-identifying the positions and speeds so they can tuck back into formation once again. And Tom just tipping in now towards the end of their display. Now, boys and girls, mums and dads, you know what to do, very familiar. When they're coming in past you, they always take a little look out. They've got to concentrate on their flying, of course, but it's great feedback for them to give them all a wave as they go past. And this time, Tom is actually upside down, but he can still see out. He's flying perfectly safely in that position, hanging in his straps. And again, once again, Michael there, really tight on the tail of that aircraft. Absolutely outstanding piece of flying, that. And that's Tom, there we go, rolling back out again. You see how agile that aircraft is as he flicked the aircraft back in. Tom, of course, passing on a lot of knowledge. You're just constantly learning in this sort of business, and I spent an hour with him just a couple of weeks ago, and it was just the most fascinating discussion to hear the detail of just how much he is partly one on, with the aircraft that he's flying. He knows every little technical detail about it, and he's able to put that to great use. Well, that's them complete. They're disappearing back off to Headcorn, and in the next moment or so, we will be going on to our first training aircraft of the afternoon. But now a quick word from our sponsor, or shall I say Fiona.
Yes, well, we mentioned a few of the sponsors earlier, but to carry on with that, we wanted to also thank Cloud Connects for their Wi-Fi support, which has been really, really helpful. Environment First, obviously, for the recycling provision. So I don't know if you've noticed as you've been walking along the prom and along the site, the ordinary small bins are closed, and we've got these very, very large ones for separate rubbish and recycling. Pure Print have provided the printed daily flying times, and PRG Marketing Communications have sponsored and designed the souvenir program. And if you haven't already got a program, do pick one up. They're £10. It's got all the information you need for the weekend, including which aircraft we expect to see on each day, but also info about what's going on in the evenings. So the theatres are fantastic at the moment. Actually, we've got Grease the Musical on at the Congress and The Hound of the Baskervilles on at Devonshire Park, and you can book for both of those at eastbournetheatres.co.uk. But tonight on the bandstand is a Back to the 80s tribute show. You like your 80s music?
No, I'm not a great fan, but I did take a sneaky look at the ABBA concert last night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it was massively popular.
Yeah.
There were people dancing all over the place.
Well, you can't not dance to ABBA.
Even those not in the concert on the side. It was brilliant. And I took your tip, although it wasn't the Court brothers that I saw. They were the day before, I think. But I did nip down to the pier as well.
Okay.
And I caught the last 10 or 15 minutes of Rockin' Robbins.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
Was absolutely,
he's really good, isn't he?
He was belting them out.
Yes.
Absolutely belting them out. And there was quite a steaming party going on down there as well.
It's a really good music venue, that, actually. And I know they've got some things on tonight, so I will double check what they've got on tonight. But that's at the end of the pier. That's called Drop in the Ocean.
Yes, and it's obviously quite a strong local music scene around here, which you yourself are part of.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, look, I'm just going to take a little break now and invite our next guest in. So we'll be chatting to him very shortly. I've got a task for you now, and it's mainly for the children out there. I need you to help me find this little aircraft. It's out, we reckon, on the right-hand side. It's quite small to pick up, and it's all white, which doesn't really help, does it? And it's the next act that's coming in. It's a really nippy little thing, and it's what you would almost certainly start on if you were thinking of joining any of the military as a pilot, because even members of the royal family have trained on this little aircraft. But it's superb, and the demonstration you'll see today is absolutely outstanding. Right alongside me now, I've got Flight Lieutenant Lloyd Mamet, and I think he's just picked it up now. Yes, I have as well. Over on your right-hand side, Lloyd is going to tell us all about it.
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the 2024 Royal Air Force Tutor Display. My name is Flight Lieutenant Lloyd Mamet, and I am the Tutor Display Manager this season. It's a pleasure to display the Grob for you all today. You can see our aircraft coming from right to left across the display line now. And now, from the centre, at almost 200 miles per hour, is the Tutor Display Pilot, Flight Lieutenant Bob Jews. As he pulls up at 5G, he converts his speed into height to perform his first manoeuvre, the Hammerhead. Flight Lieutenant Jews was born in Carmarthen in South Wales and started his flying career in the Royal Air Force in 1989, flying the VC-10 out of Brize Norton, and then as a search and rescue pilot on the Sea King. From the end of this half horizontal, Bob will push negative 2G to level the aircraft upside down for the inverted pass. This is Bob's first year with the Tutor Display. He is operating at a base height of 500 foot, except the two final passes at 300 foot. The next two manoeuvres are the wing over and the ballistic roll, which Bob can use to gain energy for the next part of the sequence. The ballistic rolls are flown in opposite directions to maintain his line. Whilst not displaying, Bob is a qualified flying instructor on 115 Squadron, based at RAF Wittering, where he trains the future generation of Royal Air Force pilots, as well as converting frontline pilots into qualified flying instructors. During his varied career, Bob has amassed over 8,000 flying hours on 15 different aircraft types. This represents almost a full year in the air. After completing this half Cuban, Bob will enter the slow roll. Get your cameras ready for some great angles. Throughout the slow roll, Bob will skillfully coordinate elevator, rudder and aileron inputs to keep the lift vector pointing upwards. This prevents him from descending towards the ground. The Tutor has a top speed of 212 miles per hour and can achieve maximum positive 6G, meaning the pilot is subject to forces 6 times stronger than gravity. Next, we have another wing over, a combined pitching and rolling manoeuvre used to turn the flight path through 180 degrees. You'll notice that every wing over is slightly different as Bob carefully selects his flight path to cater for differing wind conditions and aircraft energy states. Bob now rolls 90 degrees whilst pointing straight up, before completing a stall turn at almost 0 airspeed. The two 90-degree turns allow Bob to continue in the same direction. The Tutor is operated by No. 6 Flying Training School in partnership with Babcock International Group, primarily flying University Air Squadron students and RAF Air Cadets. There are 13 air experience flights across the UK that offer flights to up to 20,000 cadets each year. You can join the Royal Air Force Cadets if you're between 12 and 17 years old. Unlike the last stall turn, this one is flown conventionally, exiting in the opposite direction to the entry. In the next manoeuvre, the 4-point roll, Bob delicately uses the rudder to support the nose above the horizon, whilst flying at 90 degrees angle of bank. You may have noticed the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund heart on the belly of the aircraft, seen since 2022 to celebrate this fantastic charity. The Benevolent Fund supports Royal Air Force personnel, air cadets and veterans whenever they are in need. We're proud to raise awareness for a charity that gives so much to the whole of the Royal Air Force family. Visit our tent, website, or view our tutor display leaflets to access the QR code to donate to the Benevolent Fund. For those of you that are considering going to university, there are 15 university air squadrons across the UK. Students on the university air squadrons are taught to fly the tutor by highly experienced military flying instructors. The university air squadrons provide a huge opportunity for personal development, as well as a wide variety of adventure training in the UK and expeditions across the globe. We are now in the high energy section of the display with the derry turn, quarter clover, and now the loop, which is a quintessential aerobatic maneuver. As he pulls up, Bob is subject to 5G. He aims to pitch the aircraft around an imaginary circle in the sky. Even when inverted, the centrifugal forces keep him pressed into his seat. Today, the Royal Air Force is recruiting for multiple rewarding and demanding professions and has an exciting future with the continued development of our combat, maritime patrol, and UK Space Command. They will soon be joined by the introduction of our airborne early warning aircraft, the E-7 Wedgetail, and new remotely piloted capabilities with Protector. The high tempo of operations continues today with aircraft and personnel deployed around the world, operating with NATO and our other allies. Bob will now enter the final section of the display with another ballistic roll and half horizontal. I'd like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our supporters this season. They are the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund, Squadron Prince and Babcock, who have provided much of the merchandise we're giving out at our stand this season. Bob will now bring the tutor around for his departing wave. This is another great photo opportunity. If you look carefully, you should be able to see him waving, so please give him a big wave back. A big thank you to Eastbourne for hosting us today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the 2024 Royal Air Force Tutor Display.
And very nicely done indeed. Superb bit of flying. Nice aircraft. It's just what you need to understand all the elements about flying. And as I say, if you happen to be lucky enough to get to uni, those celebrating no doubt their results just a couple of days ago, then think about the University Air Squadron. They usually have a big sign saying "free flying, come this way," and make the most of it. So what's the latest with you, Lloyd? You're still waiting to go on an operational training course?
I am indeed, yeah. I'm heading out to America for 3 months from sort of halfway through September.
Oh, what a shame.
I know.
I feel gutted for you. And what will you be doing there?
So I'm going out to train with the Americans on Protector. So we bought that aircraft off them, so they're running our training at the moment.
Very nice too. Well, I'm sure you'll have an awful lot of fun.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, coming up now is altogether a very different aircraft. Operational it was indeed in a couple of important conflicts. That'll be followed. We're hoping wing walkers will be fit and ready to join us. We heard Kirsten chatting a little while ago earlier this day, and from the BBMF, of course, a fantastic turnout really after such a difficult year from the Lancaster, but then the first of our very special formations coming your way very soon.
Very, very exciting. Really looking forward to those. Tonight, if you are here and staying over in Eastbourne, quite a few things going on this evening. As I mentioned earlier, the theatres are still running Grease and Hound of the Baskervilles. There's an 80s tribute show on at the bandstand. Now, I do know that the bandstand shows sell out quite quickly, so if you are interested in that, it might be worth checking out if there's still tickets. But other than that, some exciting live music going on this evening. an absolutely fantastic band at George's new favourite venue, the Drop in the Ocean at the end of the pier. Inner Soul Collective are playing this evening. They are absolutely brilliant, and they actually start at 5:30, but I think they're going on until about 8 o'clock. Zachary Dogwood are on this evening as well. I need to find out where they are. Smash the Buffet are on at the Prince Albert in Old Town. So there's 3 wonderful bands on tonight. Get out and enjoy what Eastbourne has to offer.
Indeed, make the most of that. I look forward to that. Soul, that sort of touches my heart a little bit, so I might just go and check that out as well. And be certainly in need of a beer by the end of the day with all this chatting going on. So we're keeping our eyes out now for a very interesting warbird. Some of you may not have seen it. This particular aircraft, it's come all the way from Belgium, interestingly enough. Right, thank you. Those with the arms in the air, I can see the lights now coming in from the Pevensey end of the air display line. Of course, we bring in aircraft from lots of different directions. We still have today aircraft up at Biggin as well as Lydd, as far as North Weald, up in Essex, and of course with the majority at either Shoreham and the odd 1 or 2 at Southend as well. So aircraft coming in all around the country. They may also be supporting other shows as well. But please welcome now from the left-hand side, Tony De Bruyne in the OV-10 Bronco. Yes, it's an extraordinary machine, isn't it? But I can assure you it's really effective, really agile as well. The North American Rockwell OV-10 Bronco, it's an American turboprop light attack and observation aircraft. Developed back in the 1960s as a special aircraft for counter-insurgency combat, but also one of its primary missions was as a forward air control aircraft. Notwithstanding that, it could also carry up to 3 tons of external munitions, internal loads such as paratroopers or stretchers, and can also loiter for up to 3 hours. So Tony will put this aircraft through its paces, doing what he can to replicate as best as possible a roll demonstration, giving examples of how a ground attack strafing would look like, but also the ability of this aircraft to land in very rough strips off roads, in the jungle, and also in a combat environment. So all that coming your way during the course of the next 6 or 7 minutes. Tony himself, an avid aviation enthusiast, set up the group back in 2010 and was also well known as he goes through this barrel roll for having a group of crew chiefs and cheerleaders at all the locations that he took the aircraft. Great fun guy to work with, and unique aircraft. Not too many of these left in the world, certainly not in Europe, but this one unsurprisingly in Europe because it's an ex-German tug towing aircraft, or basically a banner towing used as a target for fighter aircraft training. That's partly why it's in these high visibility colours that you can see here today, so that the incoming fighters didn't shoot the aircraft down instead of the targets. Slowing the aircraft down now, the undercarriage down for a dirty pass. Powered by two Garrett T76, giving just over 700 horsepower each. Service ceiling of 30,000 feet and a remarkable range really of over 1,300 miles. 18 of these tug variant aircraft were delivered in the late 60s. But in this, a clear dome replaced the rear cargo door, and a rear seat was also installed in the cargo bay to look backwards out of the dome, of course neatly now providing an excellent photographic opportunity. Coming in for his first strafing run there, he'll pull up, but that's what you do as soon as you released your weapons or fired off your ammunition, then it's a sharp pull up and away from where the threat may be sitting on the ground. The Bronco was an incredibly versatile machine, performing observation, forward air control, helicopter escort, armed reconnaissance, utility light air transport, and limited ground attack, as you're seeing here right now. But it also performed aerial radiological reconnaissance, tactical air observation, artillery and naval gunfire spotting, as well as airborne control of tactical air support operations and frontline low-level photography. A real master of different classes, and hence his popularity, and of course with the equal popularity being the agility of this airframe. Designed very much to support operations from forward bases. During the course of the Vietnam War it did take off from aircraft carriers, but didn't always necessarily land back on them. Very simple to maintain, and using ordinary tools, and no great required equipment is required on the ground to support them. And here, look at that marvelous parabolic pass, really outstanding topside view. Racked armament during the course of the Vietnam War was usually 7 shots, 2.75 70mm rocket pods with white phosphorus marker rounds or high explosive rockets, or alternatively 5-inch 127mm 4-shot Zuni rocket pods and bombs, as well as air-delivered paradropped unattended seismic sensors. And I think they're calling on his final pass, although that was his final low-level pass. He's got, I hope he's got one more manoeuvre up his sleeve, which is a very interesting manoeuvre. So maybe at the end of this next one, good chance to give him a wave off. So here he is climbing to a bit of altitude, and this is all to do with, once again, operations in Vietnam, because this is referred to as the Khe-Sanh approach. And that is where there was always a threat from just simple ground fire from infantry embedded in the jungles, but his need was to get down onto the ground, onto a rough strip or maybe a piece of road in a very, very short distance. So to do that, you would point the aircraft in a very, very steep descent down to the landing area, thus minimizing the amount of exposure of the aircraft to small arms fire from nearby, and then very late on, throttling back and pulling the aircraft sharply back into configuration to land in a classic STOL configuration, short takeoff and landing configuration. Great shame we can't display that and show that to you today without having an aircraft carrier out there to do it for us. But he's departing off now to the right-hand side, back to Shoreham. And he's just been clearance to move along before the next act in we're going well today, just a couple of minutes' time.
Great, so a few safety points to remember while you're out there, folks. It is hot and sunny today, so please do use your sunscreen and drink plenty of water, stay hydrated. Also, no barbecues on the beach, please. They're not allowed anywhere on the beaches or on the seafront during the air show for the safety of everybody, and it is very busy out there today. Drones and balloons and kites and so on. There is a restricted airspace now in operation over the seafront. This means that drones and remote control devices are strictly forbidden, and balloons and kites and similar. So please, if you have brought any, please keep them in your car and don't pop them into the sky. Bicycles, well done and thank you if you have cycled to the event today. That makes it a lot greener, and there are places to park your bikes in the free cycle park at Wilmington Square or Howard Gardens, as cycling is not permitted through the site today.
And one other thing I mentioned right at the start, which is actually now beginning to cause us a bit of a concern, is the number of paddleboarders going beyond the yellow buoys. If you can hear me out there, guys, please bring your boards or your people who've got you with you in towards the beach. It will interfere with the display. We will have to stop the display if you go out, and for the sake of one or two people doing that, it's going to disappoint thousands. So please, please adhere to the safety regulations. Okay, all those out in the ocean, I can see you from where I'm sitting, and we've got the patrol boats out there as well now. Please ensure you are back inside of the yellow buoys. Thank you so much. Okay, well, we're getting some really good flying going this afternoon. The conditions are absolutely fantastic. I'm expecting the next aircraft to come in from the right-hand side as well, and that'll be in the form of a fabulous vintage Stearman. Okay, looking out now, he's coming in high. Yes, he's coming in very high, right above our sights on the right-hand side. This wonderful biplane. It's a really meaty, sturdy aircraft used to train thousands of pilots out in America in the 1930s and 40s. So he'll be coming in, and you will see atop the top wing a little lady called Kirsten, and she is going to defy speeds of 150 miles an hour, going upside down, inside out, rolling through the sky as we enjoy the return of the wing walkers in their 40th anniversary year. Yes, they're going to go uppity up, up, and down, 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 inside out, rolling as they do in this beautiful machine. Reliving all the great stories of those barnstorming years, taking us right back to the Great War, when there were a lot of spare pilots, a lot of spare airplanes, and an opportunity for young daredevils to go out and have a bit of fun, landing out in the Midwest, parking up overnight in whatever places they can, including the barns, pulling up there, you see, into another stall turn, putting a big boot of rudder on, led today by Dave Barrell. He's the company chief pilot and has just got squillions of hours doing this sort of work now, based at a lovely airfield up in Gloucestershire called Royal Flying Corps Wrencombe. Yes, that's because it was a First World War grass flying airfield. It's an absolute beautiful place, and you can do this as well if you wish. Perhaps not going upside down, but if you fancy a special treat for your loved one, then book them a day's wing walking at Rencombe and enjoy the spirit of what is something very much classic 1920s activity. Started off with an extraordinary guy in 1918 called Orman Locklear. He actually was involved in literally trying to fix a problem with one of the wings, and he got out of the cockpit while the aircraft was flying and did his best to fix it. That led him to then start doing other daredevil feats, like walking across from one aircraft wing to another wing. And, well, you can imagine, yeah, he did actually come a cropper eventually. But nonetheless, he started this fad, and it took off literally and did incredibly well as a piece of entertainment. He was aided for a while by the incredibly named Ethel Dare, would you believe? Yes, what a name for it, to join him in the wing walking business. And now, being a wing walker is an amazingly competitive activity. Yes, they are indeed the magnificent men in their flying machines as Dave rolls it gracefully there. And Kirsten, you can see her hanging from the rig on the upper wing there. There's a big, lovely, open biplane cockpit. 2 seats, of course. Kirsten would have started off in the seat for takeoff at Shoreham and then climbed up onto the rig. And you'll see her go through a variety of different aerobatic maneuvers. You have to be agile for this, as well as, I'd say, pretty courageous too. She's been a professional wing walker since 2018 and came to this as a trapeze artist in a circus, and she just loves transferring those circus skills to the top of the plane. There she is now, lying on her side. So you can imagine maneuvering around the top of that wing is not easy when you're flying around at 150 miles an hour. So when they come in close, do give them a wave, boys and girls, won't you? It puts a big smile on their faces, and she'll be waving to you during the course of the display as well. Team experience, anything between plus 4G and minus 2G as they go through the maneuvers. And these aircraft, not just standard Stearmans, they've been fitted with an extra pair of ailerons to give them greater maneuverability, and that lovely roar off the big Hamilton standard propeller there coming from the Pratt & Whitney 450 horsepower radial engine, an absolutely fabulous engine. The engine itself developed in the 1930s as well. It's just massively reliable, really strong. It makes a lot of noise, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it makes you get along any faster, but it does get you out of a very short field very, very easily. So here's a good opportunity. There's Kirsty having a good wave to her. She's about to go upside down yet again. Oh, and that little bump there. Now that's a bit like going over a humpback bridge at about 60 miles an hour. All of a sudden you've got positive G, and then whoops, over the other side, yes, your stomach comes up and meets your throat. Get very uncomfortable. So all the time this sort of flying is going on, Kirsty's moving about in the harness up there. She's got a safety strap, you'll be glad to know, and she'll need that a little later on when she unstraps from the main rig. I think the whole emphasis gives a great sense of romanticism, doesn't it? You can imagine, but of course in the early days they were not quite so safety conscious as we are now, thankfully. So very few incidents. Can you imagine the thrill, one of these landing in your backyard and just somebody hopping out and asking if you want to come for a ride? Well, that's how it all began. Yes, it took many years indeed for the American authorities to start putting or enforcing safety harnesses for all the work that was going on. It wasn't until 1938 that they actually regulated their own wing walking business before it was exported to Britain and the rest of Europe. Now, as she comes round on the right-hand side here, I'm expecting Kirsten to hop out of the harness for the first of the manoeuvres. Looking far out to sea, right on the leading edge of that upper wing. Great photo opportunity. If you focus in really close, you'll just see how she is positioned with just one hand hanging on to the main rig itself. All done by hand signals, of course, because they're not able to talk to each other, the pilot and Kirsten. So great confidence between the two of them. And as she goes around this left-hand turn over there, she'll maneuver again back into another position at the rear of the upper wing. Girls love to invent all these new acrobatic positions in an aerobatic aircraft. It's a fantastic sight. Here's a good, nice long run. She'll be giving you a wave, I hope, so do give her a wave back, won't you? Dave will be looking out and smiling, but of course keeping the aircraft steady as she goes. Fantastic. Well done, Kirsty. Look at that. Great wave to everybody down here. Well done. We're celebrating 30 down here, 40 years of wing walking in the United Kingdom. A couple of well-known guys, Barry Tempest and Vic Norman, both involved in the early days of this and carrying it on splendidly well. Hoping to get just one more pass out of them if we can. And yet another position for Kirsten up on the top there. Fantastic indeed. Barely hanging on to that main harness. Her foot is right in front of David's face, just literally balancing on the top of the fuselage there between the two cockpit seats. All that circus training coming out to play, that's for sure. She got into it by literally answering an advert in the local newspapers up in Gloucestershire, where they're based. And again, who would have thought you would have to compete for that? But a lot of girls want to do it. And as I say, if you want to have a go at it, just go to AeroSuperBatics.com and you can book in for your own wing walking ride there, whether it's for charity or just for fun or somebody's birthday. Very, very popular activity. And now here, their final fly past for the afternoon. We're hoping tomorrow that we may get a second aircraft as well for this. But this is Dave Barrell and Kirsten from the Wing Walkers, the AeroSuperBatics company at Renkham. Please give them a lovely 30th Airbourne farewell as they head their way back to Shoreham. Lovely flying, just perfect for this sort of opportunity. I think they're ideal for seafront air displays. Fiona, I'm going to put you on the list to do that. You won't mind, will you?
I'm up for it.
Great.
I would love to.
Yeah. Well, you do some extreme things in your spare time.
This is true, to be fair.
Yeah, ultramarathons are not my cup of tea. Oh, he's coming back for another fly past. Oh, this
wow.
is marvellous. They've obviously got lots of fuel to spare. Oh, well, that's a nice surprise.
How about we do it together, George? You fly the plane and I'll
Yeah,
do the
happy
walk-in.
days.
There we
I'll
go.
do that. I
With
love
a team.
flying around upside down. I'm sure you'll get used to it. Yeah. Well done, Dave and Kirsten. Yeah, terrific. I love all the paint schemes they have. They've got 5 of these aircraft altogether at base. They don't all fly at the same time. Many of them used for corporate days as well as air display flying. There we go. There he's called for the final fly past. Fantastic. Well, it's a little bonus activity. It's a lovely aircraft, isn't it? Beautiful. But he puts in a little roll here. Well, no, he's going to bunt it. Yeah, that's when you push over the top and all the blood suddenly goes to your head. But there you go. That's the training session done. That's the dry training. So all we need to do is for real.
Okay, fabulous.
And I'm not going to enter an ultramarathon before you even think of it.
I would never ask. So, if you're listening at home or if you are here with us and you're thinking about coming back tomorrow and you'd like a little bit more luxury, we have a few options available for you. That you can book reserved grandstand seating or promenade seating close to all of the military displays in front of the western lawns. You've got exclusive toilet facilities and you can come and go as you please, knowing that you've got a seat to come back to. Or you can book seating on the upper or middle balconies at the bandstand for absolutely incredible views of the flying in the heart of the flying display line. Every penny supports the Airshow, and those start at £25 per adult, £20 per child. But also we've got some new top luxury options as well. The new airfield enclosure for very relaxed seating areas with great views, and barbecues, lunches, afternoon teas, ice creams, drinks included, and also a DJ set at the end of the flying if you fancy a bit of a party. Those are £85 per adult and £45 per child. Absolutely great for groups. And you can book online at eastbourneairshow.com/VIP or pop along to the enclosure at the end of the Western Lawns, which is past the RAF exhibition. So if you are coming down tomorrow and you fancy a bit more luxury, then those are some fantastic options.
Yeah, really, really good value too. I mean, I get
so.
around the air display circuits, and in fact lots of other events, not just air displays, and really I just think the prices for hospitality are superb here. So yeah, I'd certainly be up there if I wasn't sat here. It's also a great place to watch the show.
That's it.
And have your own loo.
Which is, we mentioned yesterday,
Yeah.
George would like his own loo, please.
Yeah, wouldn't that be good?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be handy. Any one of those would be handy down where I am right now. It's funny how fast I have to run in between the aircraft.
So maybe you could do an ultramarathon then.
Too much detail, too much detail. Hey, coming up now, we're looking for something really outstanding coming our way. They've been in Southend, I think, overnight, and of course, we all know what difficulties the Battle of Britain Memorial flight have been through, but we're just trying to contact them on the air. So let me just go off air, and we will see to ensure that everything is working just fine. Southend. And what a joy it is to see the BBMF back in the air again, albeit with just the Lancaster at the moment, with the fighters still sadly grounded following the tragic death of Squadron Leader Mark Long. And we will remember him during the course of this display. Battle of Britain Memorial Flight motto of "Lest we forget," of course, is poignant to all aviation conflicts and commemorations, but this has been a particularly tough year for them, as Mark was going to be the officer commanding next year, and of course it's led to a postponement of many of their displays during the course of 2024. One of the neat aspects the BBMF have, of course, is that they have a clearance to do a slightly different arrival to everybody else, and they're just a few minutes away behind us at the moment, so you might want to keep your eyes peeled a little bit more behind you. They'll be coming over the top of your heads very shortly. In what is easily the most famous and successful RAF bomber aircraft of World War II.
Yeah, you're fine.
It's a legend that lives on today, and the contribution made by the aircraft and its crews to the freedom of our nation will hopefully never be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight Lancaster. And what a superb sight that is. And whilst this was not made for aerobatics, it was made to do a very important and perhaps also tragic job, but tragic on both sides, with a total rate of over 70,000 casualties killed, wounded or shot down across bomber commands. Followed on from an earlier design, the Manchester, the Lancaster itself, the prototype, took for the air for the first time from Woodford in Manchester on the 9th of January 1941, with the first production flights later that year in October. The crew, led today by Flight Lieutenant Seb Davey, will put it through its graceful manoeuvres, showing you top and bottom sides with the bomb bays, and later on the undercarriage as well. And what can be better than hearing four Merlin engines in formation on the wing of the mighty Lancaster. Absolutely fantastic. 44th Squadron was the first to receive the new aircraft in, it was Christmas Eve 1941, followed by 97th Squadron at Woodhall Spa. The performance of the Lancaster was absolutely outstanding, carrying a maximum bomb load of 22,000 pounds. A maximum level speed with a full load of 15,000 feet was up to 270 miles an hour, and would cruise routinely at altitudes above 20,000 feet in excess of 200 miles an hour. With a full bomb load, the aircraft had a range in excess of 1,500 miles. Its performance, ruggedness, reliability, and of course, quite a charisma with it as well. It endeared its crews, who were proud to fly this famous aircraft. An impressive total of 7,377 Lancasters were built between 1941 and early 1946. Well over 3,000 were lost on operations, and another 200 or so written off in various crashes. Sadly, the vast majority that survived were simply scrapped, but some of you here today may well recall the events in 2014 when the only other surviving flying Lancaster in the world flew across from Canada to join an outstanding display here at the Airbourne 2014 with 2 Lancasters flying, as you see today, in formation. Fantastic underside view there of the bomb bay itself. In the hands at the front end, captaining today Seb Davey. He's assisted by JJ Jackson, both hugely experienced pilots. In fact, they joined the Air Force at roughly the same time, going on to be instructors on fixed-wing courses and giving up their weekends to obviously help display this aircraft. And getting around the country to help them, Neil Whitehead as the navigator. This particular aircraft, 474, was built at the Vickers Armstrong Broughton factory at Harden, completed in May 1945. As the war in Europe had already ended towards the end of May 45, of course, the attention was switched to the Far East operations against the Japanese as part of the Tiger Force, and this aircraft was first flown in the Far Eastern configuration in August of 1945. But combat operations had pretty much ended as well before it could be deployed, and therefore it went into storage with just 3 hours and 10 minutes on the airframe. It was converted to a PR1 standard in 1952, conducting aerial survey mapping work in East and South Africa with 82 Squadron, bringing its airframe hours up to about 2,000. Went through various hands and also training at Cranfield College of Aeronautics as well, where it was modified and adopted by the Air Historical Branch as a static exhibit at the RAF Museum. Back in full flying glory and refurbishment, it joined the BBMF in 1973. So as it comes through on a dirty pass with the undercarriage down, let's take a moment to remember the 55,000 casualties and all the extras killed, wounded, shot down in bomber operations. But also this year, Squadron Leader Mark Long. Turning now for its final pass before returning back to Southend, where of course engineers from the flight will be based. Very luckily they have established maintainers to assist them, the pilots giving up their time from other duties to fly the aircraft. So on this final fly past, lest we forget all those who've gone before. And today, the members of the BBMF who keep the legends flying. We thank you.
couple more safety bits for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you do have young children with you, you can pick up a free wristband for your child, either from the lifeguard station or the information stand. Write your mobile number on, just in case you do get separated, so that you can be quickly reunited. Also, there are medical professionals around the site today. Elite Medical are here. Thank you very much for being here. If anyone does have a first aid emergency, please do chat to or find the nearest member of staff or volunteer, any of our bucket collectors or any marshals out on the site, and they can radio for first aid help for you if you need that. And there is a meeting point as well for anyone if you do become separated at the information stand on the Western Lawns. And also just a polite reminder, please, to take all your litter home with you today. There are big refuse bins along the prom. Do use those, separate ones for rubbish and recycling, but otherwise please do pick up everything and take it home with you or to a bin.
And a final, well, not a final call, another call, please, for all those paddle boarders and swimmers out there. Please, please stay close to the beach. It is getting very close to us having to stop the flying display, and that would just ruin everybody's day, won't it? And you won't be very popular when you get off your board and walk up the beach either. So please stay as close as you can to the beach during the flying display. We will give you a bit of freedom after the next formation when we go into our sort of afternoon tea break, when you can all splash about as much as you like. But I'm afraid it is very important from a safety perspective. Thank you so much. Well, coming up very, very shortly, and these guys and the formation you're going to see, very special indeed, because this year we also commemorated the 80th anniversary of D-Day. That was, of course, 1944. One of the aircraft had pretty much gone out of its operational usage by then, because leading this formation is a Bristol Blenheim. But it's going to be flanked by two Spitfires in D-Day colours, and I think a really, really marvellous contribution to add not just to the show, but to follow the mighty Lancaster bomber as well, because the Blenheim was an extraordinarily successful and very early, late 1930s light bomber. More of that in just a moment.
I didn't want you missing it and getting sacked. Well, I shouted down, I thought you're probably thinking, we know anyway, but thanks for shouting down. No, they just said they're going to do one more, then they're going to swoop round. Yeah, pretty much. That was interesting, the other plane. Not genuine. I remember.
Boys and girls, what a classic thing to see on your right hand side coming over Beachy Head. But three legendary aircraft. Keep your eyes peeled on this magnificent formation. A real first for Airbourne in our 30th anniversary year. From the Aircraft Restoration Company led by John Romaine, please welcome Blenheim formation. John Romain, a familiar name, of course, to Airbourne. He's been supporting this show for most of the years that it has been operating over the last 3 decades. He's a familiar name associated with Spitfire flying in particular, but one of his great achievements was restoring this venerable light bomber back into flying condition, and what a story that is. Flanked by a Mark 9 and a Mark 11 Spitfire in the hands of John Gowdy and Mike Collett. All 3 pilots absolutely versed in the vintage warbird world and enjoying every moment. Let us savor it. The Blenheim itself, initially conceived as a civil airliner, was in response to a challenge from Lord Rothermere to produce the fastest commercial aircraft in Europe. It was allocated then as a Type 142, first flew in 1935, but it really impressed the Air Ministry enough to turn it into a modified design as a Royal Air Force bomber. Deliveries of these to the RF squadrons commenced in March 1937. Initially referenced with the name Bolingbroke, but retrospectively changed by the Air Ministry at the time to the Blenheim. Blenheims, the Mark 1s and Mark 4s were adapted as fighters, additionally by the addition of a gun pack of 4 Browning 303 machine guns in the bomb bay. Magnificent sight and sound, flanked by the iconic design from the R.J. Mitchell Supermarine factory design team. We'll see another pass or 2 before we break into individual variants. The Blenheim became an incredibly multi-purpose aircraft in the early years of the Second World War, used as a long-range fighter, a maritime patrol aircraft, and used as a bomber gunnery trainer as well. It was the first British aircraft with an all-metal stressed construction, a retractable landing gear, flaps, and a powered gun turret and variable pitch propellers. Amazingly enough, the Mark 1 was faster than most fighters in the late 1930s. So enjoy this formation as they'll shortly be breaking into individual demonstrations. Of course, all being flown very gently and ably to ensure the longevity of these amazingly valuable aircraft. An amazing 4,400 Blenheims were made in the various types during the course of the late 30s and early 40s. The start of the war, in fact, it was the most populous aircraft that the Royal Air Force had at the time. And there, John calls the break. It's the Blenheim marvellous steep climb out, leaving the fighters just to hold off for a few seconds as we get an opportunity to appreciate the Blenheim solo in our display area. You can appreciate there as we get that underside pass just what a large aircraft it was as a fighter at the time. But of course the development of monoplane fighters made all bombers at the time more vulnerable, particularly if flown in daylight. Although the Blenheim went on to prove success as a night fighter. Many were, however, shot down, many lives lost. They continue to be used by overseas operators, the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Finnish Air Force, and the Royal Yugoslav Air Force as well. Well, in fact, in Finland right up until the late 50s. But it was retired from the UK inventory in 1944. What's quite extraordinary about the renovation story here is that the front of this aircraft, the cockpit and nose area, had actually been detached many, many decades ago and was used, believe it or not, as an electric car. Well, that was discovered and found, and with John's ingenuity and the excellent mechanics that he has across in Duxford, managed to make outstanding use of that cockpit in this aircraft you see here today. John calling for his last pass. Typically, of course, the Blenheim would carry a crew of 3, a pilot, navigator, bombardier, and a wireless operator. A little bit cramped on the up in the front pilot's area with the control yoke obscuring many of the instruments and making it tricky on landing. But last pass now from John Romain in the venerable Blenheim. Keep your eyes peeled now as John Gowdy leads in the pair of Spitfires from our left-hand side. produced in greater numbers than any other British combat aircraft before or since the war. Over 20,000 Spitfires were built in 22 different variants, and the aircraft remained in production for 12 years. Its first maiden flight took place back in March 1936, and the Mark I's entered service with the Royal Air Force with number 19 Squadron in August 1938. Led today by John Gowdy, backed up Mike Collett, both sporting their D-Day insignia. Of course, for those unaware of that, that was of course a neat identification put on by many military endeavours during operational needs to ensure that the aircraft was not shot down by our own forces. Notable even in conflicts today, not necessarily the same markings, but definitely a marking of some sort essential. The development potential of the original design allowed the Spitfire to establish and maintain the air superiority absolutely vital to the defence of Britain, and also keep pace with improvements in performance of all enemy fighters throughout the course of the Second World War. Spitfires fought in every operational theatre of the war and remained in frontline service right up until 1954. At the end of its development, the Spitfire carried an engine producing more than twice the power of the original. Its maximum takeoff weight and rate of climb had more than doubled. Its firepower had increased by a factor of 5, and its maximum speed had been increased by a third, all very much essentially in the same design airframe conceived back in the mid-30s. The Mark 11, a rare survivor of this mark of Spitfire, with just 2 remaining in airworthy condition, specifically designed to perform high-altitude, long-distance photographic operations. And indeed, one of the most famous exploits it undertook was to gain images following the dam busters raid to prove the extent the dams had been breached. Armament had been removed in place of extra fuel tanks to allow for increased range. And thus the main defence for an 11 was height and speed. Again, all very gently done and manoeuvred, brilliantly led, of course, maintaining the longevity and flight time of these phenomenally valuable aircraft. The Spitfire, of course, played a major part in achieving ultimate victory in World War II, deserving its place as probably the most successful fighter design ever, but certainly as the most famous British and charismatic aircraft of all time. As they pull off into a wing over on the right-hand side. Note on the LF9 that entered service in September 1944, initially with a maintenance unit at Lynham, where it was prepped for active duty. It was delivered to Merville in northern France the following month and pressed into service with 33 Squadron. They were the 135th wing of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, by which time the conflict had turned with the Allied forces moving east through Europe, and this aircraft supporting the push primarily what we would call now air-to-ground flying, strafing key targets such as rail and road transport convoys, before it was then reallocated to a site in Belgium, seeing 20 operational sorties in total with 33 Squadron, before being replaced with the more heavily laden Hawker Tempest in early 1945. Oh, and what a wonderful split there. An opportunity for both pilots now to enjoy a little bit of freedom of the sky, and it can't be better than today, can it? Showing off the wonderful elliptical wing, so definitive of the Spitfire profile, and of course the very thin wing, built, made for speed, really effective design, but of course the wing still thick enough to keep the all-important early machine guns, then subsequently the cannons, and of course the undercarriage. Now, it was a tough call for many of the pilots in the Mark 11 who could avoid most enemy fire at operating height, but by no means an easy job for pilots who suffered from the extreme conditions in an unpressurized cockpit. Of course, that was rectified later in the war as well. This aircraft entered active service from October 1944, taking photographs across Europe as part of 4 Squadron before transferring to 2 Squadron. Towards the end of the war, many aircraft were beginning to be replaced by, of course, the new jets. However, this aircraft survived and was gifted to the American Air Attaché at the time, Livingstone Satterthwaite, for his use as personal transport. It continued to wear its photo recce blue colour scheme. John Romain and his company, the Aircraft Restoration Company, acquired the aircraft eventually and put it through a full rebuild, improved the perspex windows and the original Rolls-Royce Merlin 70 engine was tracked down as well, overhauled and refitted to the aircraft. And the final pass for this, no doubt, ending up with the famous victory wall. In fact, he's not. He's pulling up into a oblique, just put in a little twist there to complete a quarter clover and exiting off to our right-hand side. And on that mark, we conclude the first half of today's flying. An absolutely magnificent way to end that. Every aircraft, every air display, I should say, should always have Spitfire in it. Well, we're going to be blessed with 3 today because we have another one coming, hopefully, later in the day. We're not sure yet whether that would happen, but I think what a cross-section and what a really phenomenal we have just had. It's absolutely superb to have entertained you with such a magnificent set of aircraft. Well, very shortly we'll be chatting to a very interesting guest who has a lot of experience of these particular air shows. So we'll be back with you in just a moment. of one thing, aren't you?
Money.
Money, yeah. So is it also your responsibility to divvy up all that money and allocate it to certain things?
No, the Director of Tourism actually divvies it up, but I have to approve where it's going, and we have to also approve that things like this become cost neutral.
And that's a tough challenge, isn't it?
It's been a very tough challenge. When you think 2 or 3 years ago we were losing a lot of money on this, that to come in last year on budget with a slight lot of money coming back into the council, not a lot, but it was the first time we've actually made a bit of a profit.
And that's got to be the key, is getting that circulation of money going back to where it begins, because one of the things we always say, and I work a lot around the country, is that these shows just do a fantastic amount of good for the whole community. But I mean, clearly the hoteliers and the shopkeepers and the restaurants must be doing brilliantly well, which is great. So how are we going to fix that?
Well, the only way to fix it is for people to contribute, as they have been, buying programmes, paying for parking, putting money in the bucket, because that all helps us to make sure that we come back again next year.
Well, I certainly hope so.
So do
I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed every year I've been involved, and there's quite a few for me now as well. Fiona, this is your first year. I mean, what are your thoughts for Mark? Can you offer any local advice, I wonder?
Oh, well, I don't know about advice. I mean, it's my first year sitting next to you, but I've been involved with Radio Airbourne in previous years, and I've attended the Airshow myself, when my kids were younger, and always really enjoyed it. I mean, my father was in the Royal Air Force, so for me, there's that connection as well. I mean, personally, I enjoy a lot of what the town has to offer. I mean, obviously, we all know we've got fabulous theatres. Yes. I know I've been to the tennis in the past. I also do quite a lot of sport. So what I'm interested in is that I'm seeing more sporting events coming to the town. For example, big triathlons,
yes,
ultra runs,
yes,
that kind of thing is happening. And I think, are those sporting events bringing more people to the town? Do you think?
Yes, they're definitely, and they're coming to stay overnight as well, which is good for the hotels. They're using the restaurants when they're here, because they start so early in the morning, they have to come the day before. So that is all good for the economy. And because they do it themselves, it's not costing us anything as such, just to help them get everything in place and provide support for what they need and guide them where they should be going to get extra help.
Right, exactly. And I mean, do you have any input there with, say, helping to market, promote these things at all?
Yes, we do. Visit Eastbourne promotes anything that we're asked to promote and that we can promote. We've got a huge website. We've got a lot of people that receive our emails every month about what's on in Eastbourne, and that tells everybody what is going on.
The other area that I'm personally very interested in is the music scene, because I'm a musician and I've actually played a few gigs for the council at the beer festivals and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I think those are wonderful, wonderful events. I also know that those, though, are struggling for funding. And again, how can people get involved with that? What can we do to help keep those things alive and going on in the future?
They need to keep coming to them, supporting them, buying the tickets, buying the beer tickets, and just, generally coming along and spending their money.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? And that is taking off. And it was interesting that this year the Beach Life Festival took on a whole different life, didn't it? Because it was all about original musicians and young bands.
Yes.
And it was completely different format to before. I wasn't there, but I know people who were there, and they felt that was a great step forward.
Yeah.
And that for some people it might feel, some people are resistant to change, but I think that's very good. I think the change is good, and I think that brings more young people into the mix as well.
Funny enough, I was talking to Peter Martin, the events manager and seafront manager today, and he was saying that because he programs the bandstand and he's looking at doing more events like that,
right?
Bringing bands in from Eastbourne or nearby and giving them the chance to perform there and bringing a younger audience.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think if we can really bring up the music scene and make it younger and more vibrant, then that can only be a good thing for the town.
Oh yes, I mean we've done several events at the Winter Gardens with the Delaware, like Blur and that.
Oh,
so
I was
you know,
at the Blur gig.
yes, that have sold out, and to do more like that would be fantastic because they were sellouts.
That was huge, a huge
Yes.
thing for the town having Blur here.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, for people of my age who were, you know, young Blur fans in the 90s, that was...
I could comment, but I'll resist it.
Don't be rude. I must admit, I shed a tear because it was incredibly sentimental. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. We need
Yes.
more things like that. And like you say, people need to come out and actually attend things and not just sit at home and
Yes.
think, you know, we need to really build those things in the town, the sport, the music, and obviously the big events like this.
Yeah, I mean, last week, the Eastbourne bid that do the town centre closed Mark Lane in the evening for 2 nights and had events on there that was so well supported. The nighttime economy really can grow, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And how do you feel about Airbourne going forward from today? We've, 30 years is quite incredible, isn't it?
Yes.
Really, we had a big chat with Mike Marchant the other day.
Oh,
yeah,
good old Mike.
And hearing about how it all started, and he had never dreamt that it would still be going so well 30 years on.
Oh yes, compared with what it was 30 years ago. I mean, it's a whole different scene, and it's so wonderful because it's so good for the families. People come from away, but it's also good for families in Eastbourne, the ones that can't get away at this time of the year because they're working in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
They can bring their children here, they can go on the seafront. It doesn't cost them anything if they don't want to. Yes, they can spend money, but it's just a great event for them.
We're really lucky, actually, aren't we? Because we've got a fantastic environment for all these things. Well, what do you think, George?
Well, I just think it's also an inspirational stage as well. We're motivating so many youngsters, particularly with the equipment and the people that are on the Western Lawns. I think that is a great thing for any city, any event to be able to provide as well. But just in conclusion, I mean, we had Josh here yesterday, Babarindi, who I've got to say I was really impressed with. He seems a very inspirational character, and with his youth, he's got to bring something to the party here. But he described this event as critical to the future of Eastbourne. What would you like to say to everybody if you're in the same mould, what are we going to do to help you get this going for another 30 years?
For another 30 years, we just need people to keep coming, supporting us, paying for the programmes, etc., putting money in the bucket, because the money in the bucket also goes to the charities that we've got, the 3 charities. So we're helping other people as well. But we just need, if everybody gave £1, then we would be all right.
Well, there you go, and that is nothing, is it? £1, it really isn't. But if everybody did that, and I remember saying that to Mike Marchant 10 years ago, I said, if you just find a way, everybody that has a bed in Eastbourne during the course of this event, if they just put £1 in any pocket or gave it somewhere, then that would make a massive difference.
It would make a huge difference.
Brilliant. Well, that's the message, ladies and gentlemen. Margaret Bannister, the portfolio holder for tourism on the council. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much, George. Nice to meet you both.
And our thanks to Fiona there for chipping in with a bit of local flavour as well. So about 25 minutes or so to go before we recommence flying. You know what to do, don't you? Make sure you're ready for another rip-roaring second half. as well. But it's time to start thinking about getting back on the beach, please. Those who are out on their boards or in kayaks or just swimming out, come back well inside the yellow marker buoys before we start flying again. Without that, we won't be able to get going. And of course, everybody else gets settled back in. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes before the next aircraft arrives. So just a reminder, please look after all your belongings. If you see anything suspicious, of course, please just speak to one of the friendly stewards or the policeman around the site, and they'll help you out. And don't forget to top up on that suntan, the suntan and the cream as well, especially for the kids out there. Very strong UV today. But we'll be done by about 20 past 5 this evening. But don't rush away, because there's plenty of other activities going on around town.
There really are. So the theatres have some fantastic shows on. Greece is playing at the Congress Theatre, and the Hound of the Baskervilles is playing at the Devonshire Park, and they can both be booked at eastbournetheatres.co.uk. And there's an 80s tribute show on at the bandstand. That's at 8 o'clock. eastbournebandstand.co.uk. You can also book there. But before you go, the Western Lawns and displays are open until 6 o'clock this evening. There's lots of fantastic stuff to see. So even if you've been down on the prom or down on the beach watching the aircraft and you want to head up to the lawns before you go, you can have a go at a climbing wall with the Army, or even their virtual reality headset. But I tell you what, George, the thing I spotted, the Marines have a pull-up bar.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Oh, yes, I saw a couple of cadets on it the other day. Well, you're the girl for that.
No, I'm thinking that you and me should go and,
Well, one arm each. Yeah. That'd be fun.
All right.
Yeah, we'll try that.
Shall we?
Okay, you take a break, because very shortly we're going to have the first aircraft in, and we're going to be joined by the engineering manager for that aircraft very shortly. To go. So just a gentle reminder, please make your way back towards the beach. Keep well inside the yellow buoys so that we don't have to interfere with the flying display. I was thinking we've seen quite a bit of Army around the place, and we've obviously seen lots of Air Force, but not much Navy, although I understand that it's the Royal Marines that have got that pull-up bar. going to have a go at that competition, but I hope there are many youngsters lining up for that, because it certainly looks to be quite a challenge. First of all, remember, nothing in the sky, please. No drones, no balloons, no kites. Don't even think about getting any of that out of the box this afternoon, because that will certainly stop the flying display and you will be in a lot of trouble as well. Swimmers, we mentioned, carry on dipping your toes in near to the coast, and over on the right hand side we've already got sight of our first, I nearly said competitor, but he's done a bit of that as well in the past, but our first display just going into a knife edge formation. It is, of course, Richard Goodwin in the jet pits. Very much that is Richard's trademark introduction to any display, and you'll learn a bit more about the aerodynamics of that, because even flying on a knife edge pass like that, he's using aerodynamic forces that are at play, not just on the wings but down the fuselage as well. So this is a rip-roaring display. This man's extremely talented, totally passionate and massively committed to extending both his own envelope of activities but also vastly improving the aircraft itself. And in a moment we'll get an idea of what he's done to this aircraft from Colin Hales, who's his engineer. But right now, just stressing himself out a little bit by going through the clockwork rotation of this aircraft with a little bit of negative G there, pulling up now, but again, always making sure he doesn't go in a straight line anywhere by putting in a lot of flick rolls there before then tipping it inverted. And here is an inverted, well, it's going to be about a half a circle ostensibly, where he's using the rudder to turn himself around this whilst hanging in the straps. It can be pretty unpleasant flying, something you've got to have had years of experience and a lot of physical training for as well. But with Richard Goodwin, it's all in the blood. His father was a well-known hunter display pilot in the Royal Air Force, and Richard himself was a Tornado pilot. Now, as he puts it through its paces, clearly this is not at all the machine that Curtis Pitt designed back in the middle of the 1940s. His design first flew in September 1944 and then expanded and eventually became the thoroughbred and the go-to aircraft for aerobatic competitions in the 70s and 80s, with many famous British pilots flying it. But this is radically different. To tell us a little bit about that, please welcome Colin Hales, who knows Richard and this aircraft very well. Colin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, George. Good afternoon, audience.
So, come on. The wing looks different to me. The engine, I suspect, is not the original. And I would imagine there are a few other things on there that we can't see, but you know about.
I do. One of the interesting things that people don't realise is that Richard is normal harnesses are insufficient. Richard is actually ratchet strapped into the aircraft with two big ratchet straps, so he can hardly breathe. So he's held into the aircraft and tightly, so much that when you're upside down or going through any of these vicious manoeuvres, he can be held to the aircraft. Indeed, the forces are astronomical. If you take a video and you look inside the cockpit, he's been thrown around in that cockpit. It's quite violent in there.
And the extraordinary thing is, of course, he's doing it himself. Now, just hovering there, he put it into, well, it's a pinwheel now. He's actually rotating it, spinning it on its tail to front end. Now, how does he control that aerodynamically?
It's all about airspeed.
Right.
And the air flowing over the wings. So as you go into the vertical, as you can see now, there's air flowing over the wings, but at any point that it comes to a hover, then when the air breaks away from the surfaces and flight controls, the aircraft basically becomes into a tumble and it's falling out of the sky, not in control. But then very quickly, these wings are designed to grab the air again, and then you can regain control of the aircraft and fly on.
Wow, that sounds incredibly complex. I know he spent years. Well, did he build this from scratch?
Indeed. Most people think that this is a bought aircraft, but no, that came in a few boxes and was on his kitchen table for quite some time being built. It was just a complete kit that Richard put together over about 2 years. It's not, you can't buy that aircraft, you have to build that aircraft.
That is absolutely extraordinary. Well, if Curtis Pitts were alive today, I'm sure he'd be delighted to see what Richard has done with it. Now, just feinting left and right, letting it almost hover here. Now, this is a pretty unusual position to be in. So, how's he managing to hold? Well, he's going forward a little bit, isn't he?
The aircraft weighs about 1,500 pounds, and we get 1,200 pounds of thrust from the actual piston engine itself. Obviously this is the jet pits, but unfortunately I'm sorry we can't bring you the jets today, that is my fault. But with the jets on, they add another 700 pounds of thrust. So we have more thrust than the aircraft weighs, and therefore we can hover stationary in the air. We can almost do it today. With the jets we can do it all the time.
Isn't that fantastic? Just being able to hover in the sky. No doubt we'll have a chat about what happens when the propeller starts turning the aircraft, but right now he's using that height to add energy to the speed of the aircraft so that he has lots of potential to then go up and put in a lot more flick rolls, as we're seeing now, and into a sort of Lomchevac, which is a bit of a headache, as many of you will become accustomed to, but then letting it control under a controlled short spin. And the smoke helping, of course. Now that smoke that's the Ondina style smoke fuel, is that correct?
It is indeed. One of the interesting facts about this is we're actually using more smoke oil to produce the smoke coming out of the exhaust than we're using gasoline to run the piston engine.
That is quite extraordinary. Wow, wow, wow.
We'll burn through about 40 litres of smoke oil in just 10 minutes. So if that's in your car, that's not going to go far.
No, absolutely right. But it is environmentally sound. It's a bit like baby oil.
Indeed. If you spit it on your hands, it's quite lovely to rub in.
Oh, enough. Too much detail. We won't say what else you do with that then. But it sounds great and certainly good to see. And the smoke, as I mentioned before, certainly in formation work is a safety factor as well as an artistic factor. In this case, it's just wonderful artistry to see the shapes that Richard is manoeuvring in the sky. Coming out there, hanging in his straps again. He's just loving it, is it? But when he pushes away, that negative G, very shortly he'll start pushing upwards, and that's when that really begins to affect the blood supply, and is pushing up to his head now. And if he kept that going any much more, then he would get into what we call redout. But it's quickly solved by just putting a bit of positive G back on.
But the G factors and the G loads that are experienced, you have to build up to that. At the beginning of the season, Richard says it's actually quite difficult, and it takes Richard's just not doing this ad hoc. There's lots of training, lots of flights, and a lot of G tolerance that needs to be built back up for the season.
That's interesting, isn't it? Even though he does it every year, day in, day out, you need to train just for G tolerance. And of course,
absolutely.
Yeah. And of course I tried to explain to you why that is, the forces, but it's the rate at which the force comes on and off, going from positive to negative. It's a quite dramatic manoeuvre. So here we are. Oh no, I thought he was going into a hover again. Go on.
And he hasn't got a G-suit. Most of the fast jets have got G-suits that control and restrict the blood flowing to your feet. Richard hasn't got a G-suit in there. When he pulls 6G, he's feeling 6G.
Yeah, I bet he is, yeah. Yes, when you see the Typhoon later on, of course, Turbo has got a whole load of modern equipment which acts as a mitigation or suppression of the effects of G. So hurtling skywards again, throwing it around, and really just let the propeller take over at the top of here. So pretty close. So there we go, Gyroscope. Now, what is happening there, Colin?
Well, you have a very powerful engine turning a very big propeller. But as the airflow decreases over the wings, there's no way of stopping the aircraft rotating in the opposite direction from that propeller.
That's spooky, isn't it? But and again, he didn't really. It's amazing how long he can keep it in that position.
He's a very
he's a talented
he's a talented pilot.
He
really
is a very talented
I've
pilot.
tried it myself and failed. So
indeed. And you just fall out of the sky. Well, we understand there was a technical problem with the jet engines, but and that is why we can't keep it in the full hover. But nonetheless, I've got to say, there's not a lot of difference. I mean, what he's doing with the aircraft without those engines is still spectacular.
Indeed, and as you see, as he comes to a halt now, he's got no ability to stop the aircraft rotating. This is not a helicopter with a tail rotor. but the jets are away for repair, and we'll try and get them back on the aircraft as soon as possible.
Well, that'll be great, and I suspect it'll be a couple of weeks though. Not a cheap business running an aircraft like this. And here we go once again, allowing the aircraft just to sit there for a moment, but just before the gyroscopic effect kicks in, of course, just letting the aircraft fall over itself and recovering. It is, of course, at controlled flight all the time. It looks at many stages of this display. Oh, gosh, that must have hurt us again there, pushing negative G. But it is under total control of the pilot, and as Colin says, requires a massive amount of experience and training.
It's also a very complicated aircraft. We have 3 tanks on that aircraft. We have the jet fuel, obviously for the jet engines, which unfortunately aren't on today. We have the gasoline fuel, the aviation avgas, which is for the petrol piston engine. And we also have a tank for the smoke oil. So we have 3 separate tanks inside that aircraft. And the pipework goes absolutely everywhere. If you look inside, it's just like a microbrewery. It's so complicated, it's untrue.
Now he's going to go knife edge again here, and he'll be looking out of the top of the cockpit down at you guys on the beach there, so do give Richard a wave. It's his last opportunity to get a really good view. He will, I'm sure, appreciate all the feedback you're going to give him. And here is an unnatural way for a plane to fly, but the fuselage is acting as a wing, is that right?
Indeed, you get airflow over the side of the fuselage, which acts to support the aircraft along with the wings.
And I'm sure they never expected to do that in 1940, but here he is doing it right in front of us now. So just a final few maneuvers before Richard departs, and again showing us that ultra slow flight. Quick bunt off the top there, and now a farewell as he heads back to Shoreham.
And as Richard departs, I shall also depart. George?
Well, Colin, thank you for the insight, really helpful, and hopefully see you again tomorrow.
Absolutely, no problem at all.
All right, take it. Give him our best regards.
I certainly will.
Yeah, no, great guy. Really, really energetic, committed, really professional guy. He spent hours chatting to Richard about all the work that he's put in over the years. I met him some decades ago when literally he was just building up his experience and knowledge of these aircraft and doing incredibly well indeed. Oh, nice of Fiona to pop back in and join me. How kind of you.
Hello.
Nice little walk. Good. Well, it's getting pretty busy up there, isn't it?
It is busy. So again, just safety points for everyone. Look after each other, stay together, make sure you drink plenty, take your litter home and all that kind of stuff. And again, please don't pop anything up into the air. No drones, kites or balloons. So I think we are coming up to some other exciting things. There's lots on this evening as well in the town. But before I talk about that, another few thank yous for some of our sponsors we haven't mentioned so far today. So Pure Print provided the daily flying times for us. More Radio have been great with promotional support. The Neighbourhood First staff for all their support, and OHM Energy for the sustainability zone. And local company Signtech have been supplying signage across the show, and Stagecoach for the park and bus service, which is really great because that helps with the sustainability and the greenness of the air show. And I think my feeling has been there's been less traffic on the roads around the town, so that seems to be working really, really well. And as we've said before, the main contributor to pollution and carbon footprint for the airshow is not actually the aeroplanes, it is people travelling to be here. But obviously we want you to be here, so please do use the park and ride next year, tomorrow, if you've never used it before. It's working really, really well. And also the Rotary Club of Helsham, all the volunteers who are out there with the buckets for the collections. Thank you so much for being here. It's a massive help. And talking of which, if you've got some cash and you pass a collection bucket, even if everyone gave £1, that would just mean so much to help keeping Airbourne going. If you do have a programme, and I thoroughly recommend getting a programme because it's absolutely fantastic, and this year it's the 30th anniversary souvenir programme, but on the inside of the front cover of the programme programme, there is a QR code that you can scan to take you to the webpage to donate a little bit of money. So it doesn't matter if you don't have any cash on you, you can do it that way, or you can ask a member of the team anywhere on site to show you the QR code on their lanyard, which will automatically help you donate £2.50.
Well, even a pound will do. I mean, it's quite nice. It would be marvellous if everybody gave £2.50, but we were chatting to Margaret Bannister earlier on, and she said, you know, it'd just be brilliant if every single person here just gave a pound. Ideally, of course, buy a programme as well, because that's a useful thing to have for the whole weekend. But we're getting very close now to the next aircraft, which is another training aircraft, this time a jet version. We were looking at the Tutor a little earlier on, but this is an aircraft, or a genre of aircraft, a whole family of aircraft called Jet Provost, which literally trained thousands and thousands of pilots during the course of the... and here he is now, coming in low and fast on the right-hand side. We're expecting him to come in right to left here at 100 feet at about 350 knots. Phil Bird in the Jet Provost Mark T5. Sporting its magnificent colour scheme, having been acquired and beautifully restored by Jeff Bell as part of his outfit. This aircraft is now literally this year celebrating its 70th anniversary, having first flown in 1954. The stalwart of the flying training system, which in terms of jet training began back in the mid-1950s. The RAF were looking for a replacement and engaged originally Hunting Percival to come up with a British jet power trainer aircraft. And that was to replace the Percival Provost basic trainer, and the prototype, the early mark of this family of aircraft, first flew in June 1954 from Luton Airport, leading to an order from the Air Ministry for 10 Mark 1s. That was very quickly replaced and taken on for another 40, however, with the improved Jet Provost Mark III, featuring a more powerful Armstrong-Siddeley Viper jet, ejector seats, a redesign of the airframe, and a few other modifications, before then moving on to develop the T5. And 2 marks are different about this. This is actually a T5A. The 5 was also pressurized, had a larger canopy and cockpit view, but also in this case has tip tanks on the end of the wings. Flown today by Phil Bird. You may just recognize that name. He has displayed an aircraft here before, but it was back in 2012, the Jubilee year that we all enjoyed together with the Olympics. And at that stage, he was an instructor flying the Hawk, and he became the Hawk display pilot for that year. He's a good hand therefore to go back and do a bit of retrospective flying in between his time flying Airbus 330s and 350s for Virgin Atlantic. But he, after training in the Air Force from 2002, he was posted initially onto 43 Squadron flying the Tornado F3, and of course saw operational service on QRA around the UK and in the Falkland Islands before his instructional tour, which involved teaching the tactical weapons course as well, and becoming the Hawk display pilot. Posted for a while to the Eurofighter Typhoon, where he spent the rest of his Air Force time, heavily involved in various operations in the Middle East there, and taking the Typhoon through its full range of capabilities. So looking back at the JP, a much loved aircraft. Most people enjoyed the Mark V because of its increased performance and comfort as well. The Mark III was very much variable noise and pretty much the same speed. Throughout it wasn't, but this one had a better envelope and also a nice comfortable aircraft for aerobatic work. But as you can see, not the cutting edge of aerodynamic design or power. It still uses a reasonable amount of airspace to perform relatively simple maneuvers. Not much in the way of full G suppression either in this aircraft, still not available at that stage. Pulling it neatly up, and you can see how wonderful that colour scheme, not just the colour scheme, but also the quality of it, glinting in the sunshine there. As he comes over the top, he'll be looking over at the back of his head to ensure he's all straight and level, but rolling out with a quarter turn at the top of that manoeuvre. So just repositioning himself, and I'm not sure whether he's able to continue. I heard a bit of a chat on the airwaves in the background there. But so I think Phil is heading off back to Southend, and we'll learn more about that display in just a moment or two. But luckily the next act is already on the air, and another real special treat with a significant fighter vintage contribution as well. One of the best and the most extensively used and welcome aircraft I know during the latter half of the Second World War.
So if you are staying in Eastbourne this evening, there's lots to do, and if you have a programme actually, you can check out pages 50 to 51 of the souvenir programme, and there's a guide there to making the most of your visit in Eastbourne today. So there's a shop, eat and play guide there. Don't forget to visit the pop-up park in Victoria Place at the seafront end of Terminus Road, and that's open daily until 8 o'clock. There's outdoor seating, alfresco dining and live music over the weekend. In talking of live music over the weekend, actually, my picks for this evening. A Drop in the Ocean is a really great music venue right at the end of the pier, and the Inner Soul Collective are playing there from 5:30 till 8 o'clock tonight. Bar Blue in town, Zachary Dogwood are playing at 8:45 if you're out a little bit later, and if you are anywhere near Old Town at the Prince Albert Smash, the Buffet are playing there. And obviously there are the theatres too, so we are renowned for our wonderful theatres here in Eastbourne, and the Hound of the Baskervilles is at the Devonshire Park Theatre, and Grease the Musical is at the Congress, and you can book both of those, eastbournetheatres.co.uk. And the bandstand may still have tickets, I don't know, but if you're keen on the 80s, there's a Back to the 80s tribute show on the bandstand tonight. eastbournebandstand.co.uk is the website for getting tickets for that one too.
Well, thank you very much, Fiona. That's marvellous. Well, I'm just interrupting there because if we look out, and I'm expecting them high on the right-hand side, we're having, luckily now, to see a pairs fighter formation yet again. And this one comes from a special outfit from Rolls-Royce. And of course, it is something I know you're going to love as well, because we're expecting to see both a P-51 Mustang and a Mark 19 Spitfire. They're out of Biggin Hill today, but I think we'll be going back to Lydd this evening, so they can fly again here tomorrow. We had a few tricky difficulties, of course, the other day was a bit of low mist and cloud around on Thursday, and we weren't able to see it. And but now joined with the Spitfire, a real welcome in the wings here for these two excellent aviators, Alistair Stegg-Williams, who's now in charge of the historic flight or heritage flight at Rolls-Royce, and Jim Schofield, a name well associated with all forms and types of Spitfires. Okay, well, I hear them chatting away. You may have just picked that up in the background of my microphone here. That was Steg just checking in with our air traffic and flying display management team upstairs. And he just said he's heading towards Beachy Head, and then we'll be tipping in for the display.
There's nobody up here. I could hear the engines and couldn't see them. It's the ability.
So they'll be tucking in, getting their formation sorted. As I've said before, it's just wonderful to see pairs formation flying. It's a real art and a real pleasure to see it and perform it at the same time. And these two of the most iconic fighters of all time about to grace the skies. So there we have them up in the sky, high on the right-hand side. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, our 30th anniversary year. Let's give a huge welcome to Merlin formation from the Rolls-Royce Heritage flight. What an absolute pleasure it is to welcome back these aircraft. We were expectantly hoping for the Spitfire yesterday, but now we have it in the hands of these two hugely experienced pilots. What are Rolls-Royce doing with these? Well, they're hoping to inspire, educate and promote aviation heritage through the operation of these rare and historically accurate aircraft, engines and artifacts. Aim of the company is to showcase their historic design and excellence, and in engineering, of course, and helping youngsters get on the pathway to modern technology and sustainable through all those STEM subjects we hear about: science, technology, engineering and maths, and also to promote the company and its interests in aviation through media visits and promotional activity. But also they do one thing as well exceptionally well, which is to tell the story of and commemorate those who fought for their country. We'll see a couple more maneuvers as they continue this tail chase through the sky before then splitting apart for two individual displays. An opportunity once again feels spoiled today with the Blenheim formation, and then to have this pair so quickly on their heels. Just the sun at a perfect angle. I know for all you avid photographers out there, couldn't get much better than that, could it? Wonderful high arcing barrel roll. Repositioning now. What I'm expecting them to do is come back in together into a close formation, head straight for us, and then break apart into individual demonstrations. So we'll just drop in momentarily into the cockpit to hear that break from the leader, Alistair. And there it is. So whilst Steg clears off to the right-hand side in the Mustang, we're leaving Jim here to show the full prowess, speed, elan and style of the Mark 19 Photo Recce Spitfire. Fitted with the Griffon engine, of course, the Mark 19 represents the pinnacle of the Spitfire's development in terms of speed and altitude. Its capability giving a top speed of 445 miles an hour and a ceiling of 42,000 feet in its Photo Recce colours. This was just one of 79 built at Supermarine in Southampton as an unarmed high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft, seeing active service during the Second World War, based from RAF Benson before moving across to Belgium and Holland. The aircraft remained on duty in Germany until 1946, before then being retained on the Royal Air Force inventory as part of 3 Photo Recce aircraft in the mid-50s, unfortunately being kept to help form what was then the fledgling Royal Air Force Historic Aircraft Flight, which eventually became the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Now owned and operated by Rolls-Royce, Papa Sierra 853 carries its wartime colours from early 1945, when it served with the Royal Air Force's 16th Squadron until the end of the war. It participated in Operation Crossbow to detect Vengeance weapon launch sites in 1945, before then being converted to conduct the meteorological research known as the temperature and humidity of the upper air masses flight up until 1957. This aircraft is now popularly well known, has become widely recognised as an ambassador for Rolls-Royce, appearing at air displays and charity events, as well as at their own corporate functions, representing the heritage of the Spitfire, rich as we know, but also the Rolls-Royce engines that powered them. The Griffon engine itself was initially designed to answer needs and specifications for the Royal Navy for an engine capable of generating good power at low altitudes. And early concepts had begun as early as 1939 under Joe Smith, who took over, or Smith I should say, took over from R.J. Mitchell, the design team at Supermarine. Griffon engine Spitfires, would you believe, flew as early as November 1941. Never produced in the large numbers of Merlin engine variants, but were certainly an important part in the latter days of the Spitfire family. keeping at the forefront of piston engine fighter developments. Hear that distinctive growl, very different sound to that of the Merlin. And what a pleasure it is to see a wonderful victory roll towards the end of this solo sequence from Jim Schofield. So Jim coming out of this maneuver now to make his final pass of this particular sequence, and I have little doubt, absolutely got a big smile on his face. You don't get days much better than this. And a nice little wing waggle there to see off the end of that. Of course, they came through a variety of different marks, the 19 being the last and most successful photographic reconnaissance variant of the Spitfire, combined features of both the 11 and the 14, and then of course the addition of a pressurized cabin as well, and increasing the fuel capacity up to 256 gallons, 3.5 times that of the original Spitfire. A total of 225 were built, production ceasing in 1946, and how good it is to still see one of these aircraft here today. So don't worry, it's not all over yet. We're just waiting now for Steg to take over the show. Here he is coming up in a high arcing maneuver to show off the distinctive prowess, the meat and muscle of the mighty P-51D. The most successful long-range fighter escort of World War II. Not instantly successful, of course, and hence the Rolls-Royce connection with this, because it was originally built with an Allison engine. The pilots weren't too impressed with that, and the RAF went back to the drawing board. And then in 1942, towards the end of that year, This magnificent machine was transformed with the replacement Merlin engine in place of the Allison, and then the fuselage in itself gradually modified as well. So that by 1943, with the Packard Merlins installed, the P-51B and C models, the near-perfect marriage of engine and platform made the then developed 1944 P-51D with a bubble canopy and 6 guns one of the most potent fighters of all time. It was known very extensively for its phenomenal work as a bomber escort, because of it had an incredible range of 2,000 miles, had a huge fuel capacity of 1,000 litres internally and 815 litres in the drop tanks, but also a maximum level speed of in excess of 430 miles an hour and a max diving speed of 500 miles an hour with a service ceiling just under 42,000 feet. This particular aircraft rolled off the North American aviation production line at Inglewood in California in mid-1944. Delivered to the United States Army Air Force in July 1945, and thus didn't see combat during World War II, spending most of its time in training units, before being delivered to the Royal Canadian Air Force in 1951, serving with 403 City of Calgary Squadron right up until 1959. So with the Mark 19 Spitfire that you just saw, Rolls-Royce thought it absolutely fitting to fly the flag for Rolls-Royce that they have a Merlin-powered aircraft to add to the Heritage flight, seeing the Mustang as a perfect fit with its global appeal, and also celebrating an historic and ongoing relationship between the company and that of the United States Air Force. Some of you may well have seen this aircraft many years ago when it was known as the Shark, owned by Sean Patrick, from whom the aircraft was leased. A lovely topside pass there. Stake just getting you a good view down at you. Don't forget to give him a wave as well back before he leaves. Back in 2020, this aircraft was repainted in the colours of a legendary Colonel Donald Blakesley. He was the commanding officer of the 4th Fighter Group, the Debden Eagles. And this particular colour scheme was meticulously researched to ensure that it was accurate to represent Blakesley's wartime aircraft, Whiskey Delta Charlie. He also referred to his aircraft as the Warhorse. That was a nod to the Mustang's name itself, but also to Blakesley's radio call sign, which was Horseback Leader. Steg Williams started his career with the Army Air Corps, flying the Lynx helicopter, predominantly on anti-tank duty roles. Lovely topside pass again. Go on, give him a wave. He's looking down at you right now, just seeing that you're all enjoying yourselves. So he spent a good few years flying the Lynx with the Army Air Corps, including a couple of seasons with the Blue Eagles. Some of you may recall that 5-ship helicopter with an aerobatic Lynx at the front end. A really superb team. I just happen to have been involved with them as myself as well. But he then went on to fly the company jet for Rolls-Royce before being recruited in to take over the Heritage flight. And what a lovely job that must be to have. Both these aircraft now housed and operated from the company's dedicated hangar at East Midlands Airport. And I hear just Steg there giving a farewell call. He is complete, finishing off with a lovely roll at the end there. Back for tea and tiffin and a bit of fuel, and no doubt topping up the oil as well. Superb, lovely, lovely pairs display. Well, what a day we've had, absolutely superb. But I hear another extremely professional and high performance fast jet pilot. But better have a quick update from Fiona, just in case I've forgotten something.
I don't think you've forgotten anything. I mean, talking of tea and tiffin, there are lots of fantastic vendors up on the Western Lawns. So if anyone is hungry or needs a drink, please do head up there. There's all sorts. You can literally get anything up there. So we've talked about buying a programme and donating to help keep the air show going. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the 3 charities that your money goes to. 70% of the money raised will help to keep Airbourne flying, and 30% goes to 3 charities. First is Care for the Carers, then the Marie Curie, London and South East, and that is for end-of-life care. But also the People's Charity, voted for by you, is a charity called Forward Facing, which is a Sussex-based charity supporting families whose children are living with long-term or life-limiting conditions, or those who have suffered bereavement or hardship. So your money really is going to some very, very good causes. And
well, Fiona, I hate to interrupt you there, but I hear there's somebody coming at an incredibly high speed very, very shortly, but we've limited him to 600 miles an hour because that is the speed limit around here, I regret to say. And would you believe, breaks off to lift off in just 8 seconds, breaks off to 35,000 feet, and Mach 1.5 in just 2.5 minutes. This will thrill you. It's coming in low and fast from the left-hand side. Just wait to see up the jet pipe of these 2 Eurojet EJ200 super reheated turbofans, pushing out 40,000 pounds of thrust. It's turbo and the Typhoon. Yeah, what a thrill that must be to enter any display site like that, and I know he'll leave it in much the same format as well. Joined the Air Force, brought up in Cambridgeshire, became interested. He was shown around a Tornado GR4 at Marham, and that's where it all took off. So at 17, he took a flight in a Tiger Moth, and the rest is history. Here he is, right at the sharp end of the Royal Air Force operational inventory. Capable of getting up to 65,000 feet, and has got all the weaponry at stake, a whole raft of things. If you look at the underside passes, you'll see all the hard points for putting in a whole range of ASRAM, AMRAM, Storm Shadow, Brimstone, paveway laser guided to 500-pound bombs, and of course let's not forget the 27mm Mauser cannon as well. He'll be pulling G limits right up to 9. He's got a bit of help with that, a bit of mitigation and suppression, but minus 3G, he's just got to look after that himself. Celebrating the 80th anniversary of D-Day as well with those stripes. We've got a squadron pilot with us, and when we get a quiet moment, we'll be having a chat with Dave. And I understand this one has got a nickname.
Yeah, Moggy. It's painted up like a Hawker Typhoon from the Second World War. So it's been named as Moggy this year. Blackjack has long gone, unfortunately, but this colour scheme is obviously very impressive to look at.
I've little doubt the engineers had a say in that nickname, didn't they?
Yeah, they certainly did. They always have the say.
So, quickly, you've already done a tour as a squadron pilot?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done a tour on 11 Squadron at RAF Coningsby, so I was on that for 4 years on the front line, and I've just moved over to 29 Squadron to start my instructor training, where we'll do refreshers and bring new people onto the Typhoon, teach them how to fly it and then fight it.
A little bit of swath, I think you call it, coming off the wings there. That's just air condensing as he pulls that 9G turn there. And a little bit of suppression equipment. It helps. You got, I think, a full body suit as well as the G pants as well. Can you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. The G pants we have, and we have the jacket which inflates as well, combined with the oxygen mask. So it helps you keep that blood in your head and breathes for you as well at higher G.
And you don't hear that noise at all, do you? But you can certainly feel the power. What's it like?
No, it's pretty quiet in the cockpit actually. It's pretty startling when you're up next to it on the outside. You can hear it now. Nice and quiet inside. Really nice to fly. Actually quite easy, but that frees up capacity to operate the jet. It obviously does air to air, air to surface, everything the Air Force needs it to do.
Now, a slow roll in this sort of aircraft, that can't be easy.
I'm sure he makes it look very easy, but it's actually quite a lot of handwork in there to get that roll rate spot on and make sure the nose doesn't drop as he rolls.
Yeah,
around.
and keeping the aircraft going straight at the same time. That's a lot of. But you don't use your feet very much in these this class of aircraft, do you?
No, they're mostly footrests when you're flying. We use them on the ground to steer when we're taxiing, but in the air, the flight control system's very good, so we actually don't need to use the rudder that much.
Now, this is what they call carefree handling. I mean, is it really that comfortable a jet to fly? I mean, it just looks straightforward, but you've got what sort of equipment have you got helping you?
In terms of to fly the aircraft?
Well, he's coming back now, and it looks as though it's going to stall.
Yeah, so the carefree handling is accurate. It doesn't let you overspeed the aircraft, doesn't let you overstress it. So we don't have to concentrate on those factors when we're flying it, when we're fighting it. And we can concentrate more so on what we're doing. Here he'll be flying it to the limits, the slowest speed it can do, down to its maximum alpha. And then obviously you've got those two massive engines for you when you need to start speeding up and power out of it. You've always got that power to hand on your left hand, as I'll be doing now.
As you can tell, talking about a Typhoon display is all about timing, and it's about knowing when he's going to put those throttles forward. But this is real modern gen design as well. Okay, conceived and developed during the course of the 80s, but compared with an old jet, he puts this display in a very small box.
Yeah, the manoeuvrability of the aircraft combined with the engines that it has, it puts it in a really good position, especially in the visual arena for air combat. And yeah, as you've mentioned, he's accelerating really quickly. He's keeping it all in a tight spot, and he can pretty much put it straight on the nose and go straight up once the afterburners run.
Now pushing this out, negative G. That's probably, would you say that's the most unpleasant part of his whole display?
Absolutely. I think anyone who's flown the Typhoon watching that, when he does that negative G turn, we all feel it because it's a very uncomfortable sensation. So we try to minimise that when we're flying.
Well, no, it's just terrific to see it. And of course, you occasionally will see those canards just twitching away. It is extraordinary. There's a lot of computer-aided equipment on board here, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from memory, there's 200-something computers keeping that in the air.
And what's the nickname you give to the little digital voice that keeps you all under control in there? I heard that some Germans pilots referring to it as Barking Betty.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got slight variations of that, but we won't say that on the tannoy.
Okay, fair enough. But it must be a bit like having a safety pilot on board.
Yeah, if she's talking to you, it's normally because something's wrong. Actually, it also gives you information calls, so it's keeping your head out of the cockpit, and you can rely on that system to let you know if there's any issues with the jet.
Must be fantastic. But of course, the big difference, as we all know, is fighting the aircraft. Learning to fly is relatively straightforward, and pretty much anybody can do that, especially if you're not in the military, if you've got the money. Of course, you can learn to fly an airplane, but actually the whole thing that cuts apart the military guys is fighting the aircraft, and I've already described the vast range of weaponry that is available on board this aircraft. It's absolutely fantastic. So truly still a multi-role, and it used to be called a swing role, didn't it?
Yeah, now the Typhoon with the single-seat aircraft, it's designed to do everything. All the air-to-surface and air-to-air disciplines we all train for. We've done, as a frontline Typhoon pilot, you'll do tours in Iraq and Syria, and you'll also do air-to-air missions as well, so you need to be proficient in everything.
Well, thank you. Well, that was Turbo just signing off there. What a way to leave an airshow. It's fantastic. Just turn the jet on its tail, put a select full reheat, and just go for it. Well, thank you all very, very much indeed. We'll pass that applause on to Turbo. Well, Dave, I'm guessing you're going to see him tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a nice drive back to Southend once the M25 quiets down.
Oh, gosh, I'd forgotten you were at Southend.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll head back there once the traffic goes. But thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Not at all. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you, everybody. Please make sure if you're moving off to take all your belongings with you off the beach. Don't forget the children and the grandparents as well. Keep them all under control and close to you, please. And take your rubbish away as well. Dispose of it sensibly. But thank you all so much, and now enjoy the rest of what Eastbourne has to offer on the Western Lawns and all the other places there are to eat, drink, relax, and listen to music as well.